gotta get out of here.
I can't stay behind.
Don't argue with me, Tally.
Don't leave me behind.
I need you to make it out of here alive, Tally. Back to Red. Build yourself.
I have a home. Come back to me.
Go!
Hello, Mass Effect Nation. With E3 just around the corner, and all the hypes ramping up to max level for the next Mass Effect game, I feel now is a better time than ever to bring you the second video in my series where I bring you every piece of information I have regarding the next Mass Effect game. I will tell you whether or not each individual piece of information is confirmed, or if it's a rumor. I'll break each individual piece of information down, and I'll give you the exact source for the information, so you can look it up for yourself and make up your own mind about it. Now remember, these videos contain all the information I have to date about the next Mass Effect game. All the info, both new and old, everything known to date. Think of it as a video wiki for the next Mass Effect game, or like a codex. Or like having a shadow broker for your own personal friend.
Careful. There goes the next shadow broker.
Not funny.
Now, let's get to that information before another cycle ends and the Reapers invade again. The first two pieces of information come from a source we should be familiar with by now, and that is the San Diego Comic-Con event that took place in 2014. At Comic-Con, of all places, BioWare had a panel set up discussing the next Mass Effect game. They gave us about a 10-minute conference, giving us different pieces of information about the next Mass Effect game, and even showed us a couple concept images, such as the Mako images seen here, and these armor images as well. Now, this first piece of information is confirmed because it comes directly from BioWare during this conference, and it refers to the overall feel and the way they want the game to play. The overall theme is new experiences for the player, but with elements of what you know and love, and the way I interpret that is that it will still feel like a Mass Effect game, but obviously it will be new and up-to-date with new engines and graphics and all those pretty shiny things. It will still be a Mass Effect game and will still be a BioWare RPG. You get to make big choices and small ones, like whether or not to save an extinct alien species or to feed your fish. You will also get to meet new and exciting alien races and then decide whether or not to kill them. In fact, that's the second piece of information that I'm going to go over that we got from BioWare during this panel, and of course this piece of information is confirmed as well, because it came directly from BioWare. Now, BioWare says that aliens players are familiar with will make a reappearance in the game, and that means anything from Taurians to Solarians to Krogan to humans, who knows. They don't say which specific races are going to make a reappearance, but they do say we will see familiar ones, as well as new ones we haven't seen at all. Now, what are these new races going to be? Are they going to be simple wildlife we encounter, or new alien races complete with cities and culture and codex entries to read about? In fact, speaking of new alien races with cities and culture and architecture, BioWare actually commented on exactly that. This next piece of confirmed information that comes directly from BioWare came from the 2014 N7 Day podcast. During this podcast, BioWare gave us about a 45-minute presentation, giving us a lot of Mass Effect information. In fact, it was the most Mass Effect information at once to date. The specific information I mentioned having to do with alien architecture and culture was a statement said by BioWare during this podcast. They said new alien races are definitely being developed, and that they will all have their own architecture and culture based on their backstory and their lore. That means that the new races will be like the previous ones. They won't be boring, and it should be interesting to learn more about them. Or to shoot them. In faces.
Too slow.
Another small piece of confirmed information that came from BioWare during this podcast was that another major focus and theme of the game is cultural discovery, almost with an archaeological feel. Now that kinda goes with the statement I said before about learning more about the history and the backstory of the new alien races. But why did he specifically say archaeological? Now archaeological obviously means going to old ruins and learning more about them, maybe studying any artifacts you find to kinda piece together what information you have about previous races. Almost like what you did with the Prothean race during the previous trilogy. But what role will these ancient races have? Will they play the part that the Reapers played in the Protheans, or will they be something completely different altogether? I guess only time will tell. Another interesting note that BioWare brought up during this podcast was that they don't want to just do Mass Effect 4. They want to really bring the Mass Effect franchise forward and make it the biggest game yet. Now obviously this makes sense because a sequel shouldn't be smaller in scale when compared to the previous games. But if you want a pretty good example of what I think they mean by this, look at how the Dragon Age franchise has evolved over the years. From Dragon Age Origins to Dragon Age 2 and now Dragon Age Inquisition, the game has changed a lot while still remaining Dragon Age at heart. Inquisition is a true open world game as opposed to Dragon Age Origins, where you just had small regions and somewhat controlled pathways that you could explore around. So one definite piece of confirmed information we can take away from this podcast is that the next Mass Effect game will still be a Mass Effect game at heart. The next piece of information goes with the previous statement BioWare said about wanting to really bring the Mass Effect franchise forward. And this piece of information is again confirmed, and once again comes from the Twitchcast on N7 Day in 2014. BioWare says that the development process for Mass Effect 4 will be focusing on current-gen platforms and PC. That means Xbox One and PS4. Probably not the Wii U. Sorry, Wii U. So I guess your Xbox 360 and your PS3 will have to sit this one out, and probably the rest of the Mass Effect franchise. Now don't get too worried, because cross-generation games hold back the ultimate potential of a game. I mean, if they have to scale a game back to work on older consoles, then it's not going to be the best it could be on the newer consoles. Now BioWare also agrees and says the focus on next-gen, or actually current-gen consoles and PC hardware is good, because it'll allow them to provide an experience closer to the original vision they have, because new technology removes a lot of previous limitations that they had while making games. Now, the last pieces of information I want to share with you all come from the San Diego Comic-Con event in 2014, and not from the panel itself that I mentioned earlier, but actually from when BioWare allowed fans to line up and ask any question they wanted to ask about the next game. Obviously, BioWare couldn't answer some of these questions, but they did answer most of them to the best they could, and I gathered a good bit of information from these answers that BioWare provided. The first bit of information we gathered from the questions that BioWare answered at Comic-Con was involving Thresher Maws and other giant alien wildlife. Now this bit of information is a rumor because BioWare doesn't confirm or deny the fact that Thresher Maws or these creatures will be in the next Mass Effect game. But one fan asked if Thresher Maws or anything similar will be in the next Mass Effect game, and BioWare responded that they would like to put Thresher Maws or other giant alien wildlife in the game, but it depends on whether the art team can create high quality models and fit them into the game. Now personally, I don't think this will be a problem because Dragon Age Inquisition is said to use the same engine as Mass Effect 4, and if you remember in Inquisition there are plenty of giant animals. There's dragons that fly around and destroy things and make you very angry. BioWare definitely did want to confirm though that species of all various shapes and sizes are definitely being looked at. Does that mean Pyjax will make a comeback as well? Will we have to mercilessly blow up space monkeys again? Who knows? The next two pieces of information we got from the questions that BioWare answered during Comic-Con involves exploration. The first one is actually about the armor. If you remember, I said that BioWare showed pictures of the armor from Mass Effect 4. BioWare actually says that the armor was designed with exploration in mind. It gives the protagonist freedom of movement and freedom of vision to see the environment. The helmet isn't a crash dummy helmet like the one Shepard wore most of the time, but remember, Commander Shepard was mostly in combat. 90% of the time he was getting shot at or shooting at something or being angry about it.
The collectors are about to find out what happens when you piss me off.
This game seems to be more heavily centralized with exploration. That's not to say we won't get into combat, because as you explore new frontiers, especially in space, combat is kind of a given. Now this piece of information is confirmed because obviously it comes from BioWare themselves, and the main point I want to take away from this piece of information is that the armor seems like it'll have more of a realistic design theme in mind. Not to say that the armor in previous Mass Effect games wasn't entirely realistic. I always did appreciate the way that BioWare explained how the future technologies supposedly work. It wasn't just space magic, or space wizards. The last bit of information involving exploration that I'm going to go over that came from the Comic-Con event was that BioWare said that the focus on exploration is also supported by the animations as well. Now, if you remember in Dragon Age Inquisition, which is a game I bring up a lot, mostly because it's the most recent BioWare RPG game, your character in Inquisition would realistically adapt to the change in the terrain that they were traversing. If they were walking up a hill, they'd realistically look like they're walking up a hill. They wouldn't just run sideways up the hill like they normally would run on flat surfaces. I actually like to focus on the animation, especially for the characters, because it adds more depth to the game and lets the game be more immersive. If I see a dwarf running sideways up a hill, it kind of makes me not so immersed into the game and reminds me that I'm playing a video game, one that's not well made either, because dwarfs don't run sideways up hills. The last piece of information I want to cover in this video is actually a rumor, and I don't know if it's too plausible or not. I say it's not plausible mostly because of the rhetoric behind the rumor. And that rumor is said to come from the official Xbox magazine, the January 2015 copy to be exact. And this rumor involves the appearances of the two supposed new alien races. One of them is said to resemble skeletons with glowing eyes, and the other one is said to look like golems. Now, in my opinion, this doesn't make much sense, because that sounds like something that would be in an Elder Scrolls game or Dragon Age. I don't think that aliens will be skeletons with glowing eyes or golems. It seems like they're trying to mix Dragon Age and Mass Effect with this rumor, and in my opinion, it just doesn't make much sense. If anyone has a subscription to the official Xbox magazine, and maybe has a January 2015 copy and wants to verify this rumor, by all means, please comment below. I've researched it myself and couldn't find any evidence supporting it in either way, which usually means that the rumor itself probably isn't that true, or it is true and that the official Xbox magazine just did a good job at removing the scans or information from the magazine from the internet. That way people will have to buy their magazine in order to see the information themselves. Now, this is all the information that I want to give in this video because it's getting kinda long. As I said, this video series involves taking every known piece of Mass Effect information to date, both new and old, and breaking it down and giving you the source so you can look it up for yourself and determine if it's true or not. Now please subscribe, like, and share this video with fellow Mass Effect fans. Help build a Mass Effect nation, a strong Mass Effect community that will let BioWare know this franchise is loved and followed. That way we can be sure that Mass Effect is going to continue to be around for a long time. Now, thank you for watching. Keela Salai, Mass Effect Nation.
I've got nothing more to say to you.
How about goodbye?